So in this way, we're connected with events of 12,800 years ago and events today because we're still in relationship with this stream. And what we know is, what the Younger Dryas impact hypothesis proposes, is that the encounter with this particularly lumpy part of the Taurid meteor stream 12,800 years ago led to a sort of swarm of debris hitting the Earth. And as the Earth is rotating, that swarm of debris moves eastward, and right across the surface of the planet is evidence of this Younger Dryas impacts. And it immediately causes radical climate change. That's because of the ice water coming off the North American ice cap, from those big impacts on the North American ice cap. There's a mystery at the beginning of the Younger Dryas, 12,800 years ago, because global temperatures plunge, but at the same time you get sea level rise, a sudden sea level rise. Work of Cesare Emiliani. You wouldn't expect that during a period of freezing temperatures. You'd expect excess water to stay frozen on the ice caps, not to enter the world ocean. So what this speaks to is a great amount of heat and shock which was unleashed on the North American ice cap and caused this icy water to pour into the world ocean. One of the things that icy water did was to stop the Gulf Stream dead in its tracks. The Gulf Stream is part of what's called the global meridional overturning circulation. It's the central heating system of our planet. It's one of the things that keeps our planet warm. And plunging unspeakable millions of tons of freezing water into the Gulf Stream cut it completely. And for the next 1,200 years, there was no Gulf Stream, and the world went into this frozen episode. And that's when all the megafauna died off. That's when the saber-toothed tigers, the woolly rhinos, the mammoths, the mastodons, the giant sloths, they all went extinct during that period. Not because they were overhunted by human hunters, but because of a global cataclysm that took place at that time. It was a time when there's clear evidence of a massive shrinking of human population. Population goes through a bottleneck at that time. It was clearly a devastating event in every way. Now, there may be other explanations for it. What's not in dispute is that the episode that we now call the Younger Dryas, and again I'll give the dates, between 12,800 and 11,600 years ago, it's an episode, it's not a moment, it unfolds over a considerable period. What is absolutely clear, and nobody disputes, is that the Younger Dryas was a true global cataclysm on an enormous scale. There are some arguments about what caused it. I accept that. Some people think that it might have been to do with solar activity. But I think the evidence that the Comet Research Group, and there's now more than 100 scientists working on this, I think the evidence that they've put forward is the most compelling. And it explains this situation best of all, that we ran into the debris trail of a disintegrating comet, that there were airbursts all over the Earth, that it changed global climate radically and led to the extinction of the megafauna, and I would say to the loss of a civilization that existed during the Ice Age. Now, the interesting thing is that when the Younger Dryas comes to an end, it comes to an end 11,600 years ago, and it's equally dramatic. Just as global temperatures plunged 12,800 years ago, 11,600 years ago they shoot up almost to modern levels. And then there's a truly massive rise in sea level. That's called meltwater pulse 1b, that takes place 11,600 years ago. And one of the things that interests me about that, and that my archaeological critics find most annoying, is that 11,600 years ago, before our time, let's call it 9,600 BC, is precisely the date that Plato gives us for the destruction and submergence of the lost civilization of Atlantis. Whenever you say Atlantis to archaeologists, they roll their eyes and laugh hysterically. But the fact of the matter is, the earliest surviving reference to Atlantis comes to us from a highly respected source, which is the Greek philosopher Plato. And he sources that information with his ancestor, the Greek lawmaker Solon, who made a well-known visit to Egypt in 600 BC, and was told the story of a great lost civilization destroyed and submerged beneath the sea. And when he asked the priests, when did this happen? When was Atlantis submerged? They said, 9,000 years ago. So do the math. This was 600 BC. Solon's in Egypt. He's talking to Egyptian priests. They're telling him this story, actually taking it down from walls in a temple. He asked them, when did it happen? And they say 9,000 years ago. So that's a date now. That's 9,600 BC. That's exactly the date that geologists have established for meltwater pulse 1b, the largest single rise in sea level that ever took place at the end of the Ice Age. And yet, archaeologists say Plato made the whole story up to make some kind of political point. Rubbish. He is conveying absolutely accurate factual information. How could he possibly have known about meltwater pulse 1b? When he was writing, 300 BC, how could he have known about it? But the fact is, that's the time frame he gives us, and it ties in with the latest geological knowledge. So I think we should be taking Plato more seriously. And I think the Younger Dryas impact hypothesis, which provides an explanation not only for the beginning but also for the end of the Younger Dryas, requires to be taken much more seriously than the mainstream has so far taken it. The science on the beginning of the Younger Dryas, 12,800 years ago, is much more advanced than the science on the end of the Younger Dryas, but it is puzzling the way that temperatures shot up suddenly 11,600 years ago, and the last ice caps just collapsed into the sea, and we have this meltwater pulse 1b. And even before the Comet Research Group got to work, way back in the 1980s, Sir Fred Hoyle looked at this problem of the sudden sea level rise and the sudden rise in global temperatures at the end of the Younger Dryas. And unaware of any arguments about comets or anything else, he suggested that what could have caused that sudden rise in temperature was the impact of a comet or fragments of a comet in an ocean, not on land, but in an ocean, creating a huge cloud of water vapor that goes up into the upper atmosphere, creates a greenhouse effect, and results in the warming. So within this hypothesis, there are explanations both for the beginning and for the end of the Younger Dryas, which are not offered by any other theory. So it's my favorite theory, and I've done my best to, particularly in the last episode of Ancient Apocalypse, to talk to some of the experts involved and to present that theory in its full light. Could there be another explanation for the Younger Dryas cataclysm? Sure. I'm putting my money on the debris stream of a giant comet and the more than 150 peer-reviewed papers that have now been published on that subject, which nevertheless mainstream archaeology is completely ignoring. Fortunately, the Comet Research Group have recently received some funding from a generous donor. Comet Research Group, up till now, because they are going against the academic mainstream, even though they are all scientists themselves, have had to fund all their own research without any support from anybody else. And they've made huge progress since 2007 in nailing down the Younger Dryas impact hypothesis as the best possible explanation for what happened. But with the new funding that they've received, we're going to see this issue absolutely settled within the next 5 years.
5 years.
Yeah, we're going to see this issue absolutely settled, and I'm very sure where it's going to go, that the Younger Dryas impact hypothesis is going to be proved correct. But where we stand at present, there's one thing for sure. The Younger Dryas was a sustained global cataclysm. It was an immense event. It made extinct huge quantities of the megafauna of the Ice Age. It diminished human populations, and I think it's a prime candidate for the loss of a civilization, a forgotten episode in human history, a golden age, a lost civilization that is remembered in myths and traditions all around the world, the very myths and traditions that archaeologists despise and ignore as fireside tales.
I'm looking for partners, collaborators, colleagues who want to join forces with me around the globe and create real value, generational wealth, and financial freedom for everyone else around the world. Get involved in the cryptocurrency markets, get involved in the NFT markets. This is your moment. Life all comes down to a few moments. Don't let this pass. Now it's not too late. Next year's going to be too late. Ultimately, this is about freedom. That's the way I see it. This is about giving power back to the people and enabling billions of people worldwide to use the financial markets to improve their lives and those of their friends and their families and their communities. Honestly, I think it's a violation of human rights not to allow people basic access to financial services. Because right now people are being kept in the dark, they're being robbed of education, and it's a travesty. And so I'm looking for people that want to join me and be a part of this solution. And that all happens inside the DeFi Academy. The gains my students are making are absolutely amazing. Double, triple digit gains in the first month alone. That's amazing. This will change your life. Now is the time to get involved. I'm gonna tell you exactly how my students in my academy made money in the last 30 days. I'm talking about real trading results. And let me just whet your appetite a little bit. Let me hit you with some numbers. I'm talking Brendan from New Zealand is up 68.77% on the month. Steve from Europe up 83%. Albert in Singapore up 169.9% on one single trade. I got Susan up 153% on her call options alone, also rocking 139% returns and 442% returns as well on individual trades. These are people that are changing their financial future in the last 30 days, but it's based on trading discipline.
I've graduated over 500 students from inside my academy from over 54 countries around the world. It's amazing. When it comes to crypto, DeFi, and blockchain, we love this space. We truly believe it's the future. This is down to our core. It's authentic to what we're doing, and everybody can tell through the camera because you can't make this stuff up.
If you're watching me now, wherever you are, I implore you, take 60 seconds right now and join my academy. Apply today. Now you've got a chance. Life all comes down to a few moments. What are you gonna do? What's the choice that you're going to make?